right, in the interest of time, now that Councilwoman Hamilton-Steiner is here, we're going to start the October 13th, 2025 meeting of the Public Works and Sustainability Committee. A few items on the agenda this evening. First item, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 9th, 2025 Public Works and Sustainability Committee. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Without objection, I'm going to move several items to the top of the docket so we can get those out of the way relatively quickly. There's a communication from Law Director Vargo regarding submerged land leases. This is something about a stabilization project going on obviously the lake. If you could just give us a quick update on that, and then I'll move to the motions after that. Director Vargo?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we have the city engineer, Mr. Papke, here to answer any specific questions because it's the engineering group that analyzed these proposed leases and agreed to go forward with them. But for the work to be commenced and done by these residents to protect the shoreline, which is in the property owner's best interest and, of course, in the best interest of the city, they need a lease from the city that encroachment will not impair any right of the city either today or in the future. That's what Mr. Papke really had to work on. And in order to go forward, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources requires that the local council approve in a resolution the lease of the land, the submerged land lease. So it's standard practice once the city engineer signs off on it.
Great. And
he's here to answer any specific questions.
Great. Thank you, Director Vargo. I appreciate
Thank
that
you.
background. Any questions from the committee on these leases? We'll go through them one by one, but they're all pretty much the same. 2 will be deferred and 3 will be hopefully referred for favorably to council. Do my colleagues have questions?
Mr. Chair, it'd be great to just get a briefing on what the projects are and what the proposal is and why the city is not issuing an objection. I guess what you're saying, Director Vargo, is that we don't really comment on the substance other than to confirm the facts that there was no encroachment, right? But beyond that, we typically have been in favor of, where reasonable and possible, of trying to help our property owners manage and prevent erosion. Is that the category that we're in here?
Yeah, basically they're on private property and they're protecting their land. So, it's a formality with ODNR that we confirm that, the city doesn't have any objections to it, that we don't have any, future projects in these areas or anything that would, prevent them from doing their coastal erosion projects.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman Hamilton-Steiner or any other council present, any questions? Okay, with that, the first 2 residents have requested deferrals. They're not ready to move forward at this time, but we'll go through these one at a time. So for resolution 2025.55, I'll make a motion to defer.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
For resolution 2025-56, I'll make a motion to defer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. For resolution 2025.57, I'll make a motion to refer favorably back to the whole city council.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Resolution 2025-58, I'll make a motion to refer favorably back to council.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And for resolution 2025-59, make a motion to refer favorably back to council.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, but Mr. Chair, if I could have one discussion. Just what is what's the engineering structure being used in these projects? Are they all the same? Are they connected? Are they, they're all presented in front of us at the same moment in time, but does that mean that they're connected in design somehow or technique?
No, they're each individual projects. Some of them have revetment, some of them might have a stairway or that, you know, goes down to the lake. Each one has their own uniqueness to them.
Okay. So we get these in a batch or a group referred from the state to us to review the ones they have in hand in a given calendar?
They're actually reviewed by, or sent over by the design consultant
Okay.
that is seeking ODNR approval for these.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay, so we'll move on the agenda. Next item is communication from Councilman Bullock, referred on September 15th, 2025. So I'll just give a little bit of background here. This is something that's we're talking about in regards to potentially improving communication and process regarding major infrastructure projects. I think it's a good time to discuss this, seeing as we've just passed the active or the Complete Streets Ordinance and the Case Advisory Board. So this is a good time to discuss how else we can layer in public involvement in these projects. With that, I will, as it's the author, I will turn it over to Councilman Bullock for his remarks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, members of council, for joining the committee and others beyond the committee, and thanks to the administration for being here. I see several members of the public from Bunce Road are here as well. So I think there's two layers to this. One is the feedback on the Bunce Road project itself. Two is the process about projects like the Bunce Road project and others going forward in time. And if you look at the wording of what I've proposed, I'm calling it up on my screen right now. It talks about the proposal is that council would express support for continued enhancement of our public input process for active transportation plan process projects, including this project, and that Section 2, the council adopts as a policy that it shall convene public input hearings. And Section 3, this council reserves the right on all city infrastructure projects, including active transportation projects, to take further action, including but not limited to, et cetera. So a couple thoughts. First, these are things that City Council has as powers already. We can do this without this proposed resolution. This is kind of a stating back to ourselves what City Council can do at any time. Traditionally, we haven't done that because City Council works in significant partnership with the leaders in the administration. We also, though, hear from the members of the public, and we're accountable to both. We're accountable to the public, and that's it. The active transportation plan projects are worthy, and they're large, and they are more extensive in some cases, like the Bunce Road project, than filling a pothole, adding a stop sign, even restriping parking or something, or even a traffic calming project. And we have quite a robust public input process on traffic calming, where we require 51% of the residents on that road to support before the city's considering to move forward. For these, we have an even more impactful change going on. And whether we agree or disagree with those, what I'm driving at here is that it should matter to all of us that we communicate effectively with the public, which is more than a one-time moment. It's probably also, in fairness, more than a one-department responsibility. So in this case, one department has taken the lead and has done a lot of hard and well-intended work. Council members can and should probably get involved. Other elected officials can and should get involved. There needs to be some coordination of all that so we don't have contradictory messages going out. And to me, that's not what happened this time. So, and as I said in the council introduction, what's developed is an all or nothing discussion, where you either love the project or you want to cancel it. And the people who support it have no common ground with the people who oppose it. And I don't think that's good public policy, and I don't think that long-term is wise or sound for the active transportation plan. I think we need to have some buy-in from local residents and it's a currency to good governance to have credibility with our stakeholders and our voters and our residents. And I think that the city cares about that, but I don't know that our process fully reflects that right now. I know we're going to hear from the administration before, and the administration has shared before that they've done quite a lot to address the points I'm saying. So one way to interpret the proposal would be, in fact, it says it in the proposal, is that City Council would create or consider creating a supplementary process above and beyond what the administration does to do some of the communication. That's a little distinct and different from public input. So there's a couple different layers here. I've had the chance to talk a little bit with the chairman. I think he's got some experience with what I'm referring to. So for example, if it really is the case that multi-use paths won't increase hazards for traffic and everybody coming and going, right now what we've said is just trust us, instead of getting some evidence and doing some education engagement. It's also possible that we could do some modifications to the project that would partly accommodate the feedback of the residents. And I think some of that maybe has happened, and I appreciate and respect that. So that's what I'm driving at in this resolution, which again is stuff that we can do even if this resolution doesn't pass. So I wanted to name that there's kind of two layers. One is the process for project like Smurfs Road and projects in the future. The other is the project itself, which is that, in other words, let's say council were to adopt some version of this proposal that addresses projects of great magnitude like this one, would we include Bunce Road in it, or would we say that project is already in place and it's set in stone, and we'll consider this enhancement for things in the future? I hope that's clear and helpful.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that distinction. So I think there's a lot of people we're going to hear from, but first I'll turn it over to Councilman Hamilton-Steiner if you have any thoughts, and then to other folks on council if you have anything. I know the administration will speak to the Bunce Road side specifically, but any other thoughts on either angle of this?
So, Councilman Bullock, just so I can get some additional clarification, as you're thinking about this, that this public process, it would still be different than the case? Or would it be almost work parallel with the case? So this would almost be putting forth a formal public input process that can happen aside from what the administration may do on particular projects, which could also inform the case and what case deliberates and talks about. Is that your thinking?
Mr. Chair? It could be. I'm not wedded to any one approach. What I'm really trying to say is that City Council's got a role to play. And for big decisions like this, delegating it to the Planning Commission, which are, citizens who are very highly qualified, they've got a very prescribed set of responsibilities, or the case board, which likewise is a narrow and important role. That's valid. I think what I'm proposing should not negate or contradict what they're doing. What I'm suggesting is that there's an even larger circle, and it's elected officials' role and responsibility to do more in that area.
So you're trying to find the lane that the public input process can happen that might not necessarily be housed within the planning commission or housed within the administration or necessarily within case, something that's almost elsewhere that intersects with all of the formalities in the process.
I think it would be parallel. It's kind of like you have different, in other legislatures, you have a House and a Senate, you have different bodies, and you I don't think they would be duplicative, because I'm not proposing that City Council would attempt to take on the work of the Planning Commission or case.
Correct.
What I am saying is that in our own way, we could be a venue for public input in communication. Those are slightly different terms.
And perhaps advocacy.
Yeah, and
well as
that could
what's
be a
been-
place where it clearly has a venue and a place and a home. And if there are any gaps, and I don't mean that in a negative manner, but the public is going to have a global set of feedback. Planning Commission is going to say, well, we can only consider this piece. Case is going to say, we can consider this piece. What about the big picture? So we're the big picture.
Got it.
And to the degree that that is or could be an orphan, my argument is that we could and should be that venue.
Almost like a neutral advocate for the residents that, like, it, for the example of the Bunce Road project, is using it as a potential example where it's a group not feeling that they're being heard by Planning Commission, not feeling that they're heard by the administration, so it's landed here with us, and we are their elected officials. So how do we ensure that everything that we've dotted every I, crossed every T as in regard to their needs and wishes, desires, or their voice, essentially?
I think more or less, yes. Yeah. My answer.
All right, thanks for that input. And I'll also just put out there, I think we all can do a better job on the communication side of things, especially considering that we do have these things in place, and we'll have more, the Planning Commission and the Case Advisory Board, that are public meetings and that are a chance for the public to interact and to have to understand that's part of the process. And I don't think we make that clear enough, often enough. It seems like too official of a thing. It doesn't have to be a meeting that's out in the community. I mean, we can have those too. That's great. I am absolutely for having a more open process, but I don't think we do a good enough job of getting folks into this venue for our Planning Commission meetings and when we're going through those processes. So I think that's something we can all work on. Is there any other comments from my colleagues?
Mr. Chair. So I'm particularly interested to hear from, I'm a process person. So when I look at this, were it to pass, what would happen? Like if we voted this out of committee and we passed it in full council, what would happen?
And I'll take that. I've had a chance to discuss with Councilman Bullock. I think this is meant to be a start of a conversation and not. I personally don't see this as something that's being referred out of committee today in this form. I think it does need more thought put behind it. I'm not against that, but I think we can get there quickly. So just wanted to throw that out there before we move on. All right, so I'll turn it over to members of the administration on both these matters of process in general and specifically as it comes to Bunce Road. I mean, I know this has been a long road. I was not on council when this was finalized and you know, stamped and approved. So I have had a chance to catch up on the process, but I know that particularly Public Works Director Gordon is interested in sharing some thoughts about how this process unfolded to this point. So either you or Mayor, whoever would like to take it, please.
Sure, I can take it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess my question for the committee is, what exactly is the question?
So on this particular issue, I think we need to decouple the resolution in front of us. We're talking about a more robust process of planning, and then also we're talking about Bunce Road specifically. I think what we need to understand is where we are in the process with Bunce Road at this point, and how changing that process at this stage in the game would impact that particular project.
Let me chime in before we get to the specifics of Bunce. Just a little bit about process, because as council members mentioned, there's kind of two sides of this. So process, I think where we're at in process is we went through an extensive dialogue to get to the plan that we have in place with public engagement, with the case advisory board, with the complete streets ordinance. I know to some it seemed like a while, but sometimes the devil's in the detail, if you will. So we spent a lot of time working on that to identify a process that would work, that would involve additional public comment. And so we haven't quite had the opportunity to see that play out yet. So I just want to remind everyone of that piece. And I do think it's important that we see how that plays out and how that process unfolds with these projects.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Gordon.
And then so for Director Gordon and Engineer Papke, my thought was, and if this is okay with the committee, kind of explained how we got here. So starting from the public engagement process, all the detail that went into it, and where we are at today. Does that work?
I think that's fine. I think Director Gordon's prepared to talk about the process to date and then what impacts would be had moving forward if we were to alter the process at this point.
And then one item before he starts, I want to keep in mind that there is a reason why there is a public engagement timeline, a beginning and an end. And that's with any major city project, any other municipality is going to handle it the same way, is because once that public engagement timeline ends, that's when the design and engineering work begins. And there's cost associated with that. So it's not to say that we don't want to hear public engagement after that. We always want to hear from the public. The issue is we've begun spending, and in this case, we spent $1.7 million on design and engineering. So I just want to set that so everyone understands of the rationale behind why there's a public engagement timeline and a start date and end date. But I agree with you, Councilman, there's always room for improvement. We're always looking at ways that we can improve public engagement. Hopefully throughout this process, we make improvements. And so now I'll turn it over to Public Works to kind of talk about the nuts and bolts of it.
Thank you, Mayor George. I know in the past I've talked about this exact situation before, so I'll kind of just retract my memory and reiterate again what I've said before, which was, we began the public engagement process for the Bunce Road project April 25th, 2024. Resident notice letters were sent out, yard signs were placed. May 7th, 2024, we held a public meeting, and that was the start of the public comment period, which, if I recall, was approximately about a 3-hour meeting we held at Lakewood High School. I think, if I recall, it was in the lunchroom. Then on June 6th, there was a planning commission meeting about this exact project. Then on June 9th was the end of the public comment period. So, again, what I had said before was the public comment or public input process was followed during the Bunce Road project. And for those folks that are not in favor of the project, I am sorry that you're not in favor of the project. But what is being asked of us to do, we simply cannot do. The project has been submitted to ODOT, and the plans have been approved. All of the funding has been approved. As the mayor said, $1.7 million has been spent on engineering and design. There's been environmental consultants brought in We've met with ODOT on numerous occasions, specifically about this project. There is no turning back at this point. And to sit here and say that the public input process was not followed is completely false. It was followed, public comments were received, the plans were changed based off of public comment. And with that being said, again, to the individuals that are here from Bunce Road, I respect that you're here. I respect that you want your voice to be heard. I understand that, and I respect that. But what is being asked to do with the project simply cannot be done. The shared use path is called out in the active transportation plan. City Council has come to me on numerous occasions asking me to follow the active transportation plan. And that is exactly what City Engineer Mark Papke and I are doing. And on top of that, we passed the complete street ordinance, which took over a year to work with Councilman Baker on, to then include more public input, which we did. So I guess my question from my perspective right now as the Public Works Director is, are we rescinding the complete street ordinance then? Because the foundation that has been set for City Engineer Mark Papke and I is to follow the active transportation plan and follow the complete street ordinance, which is exactly what we are doing.
Thanks, Director Gordon. I want to make sure we have time for public comment. I know we have a few folks, but I'd like to open it back up to my colleagues on council if they have any more thoughts at this point before we let members of the public talk.
Respond, Mr. Chair. So first of all, thank you, Mayor, for your comments, and I appreciate you've been consistent throughout. So has the administration. You guys have been clear about what your position is, but I appreciate that you agree that we can always enhance our communications. That's essentially what the spirit of what I'm saying is. To answer Director Gordon's question, what it says is not, well, now I've lost you asked you had a specific phrase or question, but what it says is continued enhancement of Lakewood City Hall's public input process for active transportation plan projects. That doesn't negate the things that you talked about or referred to. So I get that there are legal procedures that Public Works and Planning Commission and all project approvals are required to adhere to, and you guys are following those procedures. What I'm talking about is a broader circle, okay? And the responsibility for the bigger picture arguably is not in Public Works, it's in a broader conversation. So I can empathize to say, you know, you're saying, look, we established the marching orders, we're doing our level best to follow the marching orders. Which is it, you know? And that's a fair question on your part. What I'm challenging all of us to say is maybe the standard that we all collectively use, and this is, you know, in some ways we shouldn't be looping through Director Gordon. This is a leadership question for all of us, the electeds, is the standard for communications I'm inviting us to raise. And I also put on the table, I think, that the local residents' support should be weighted a little differently than we seem to have done that. I don't have all the facts in front of me, and you know, maybe there's some data that administration will be able to share to say, well, actually, you know, we have X number of people that live on the road, but it's not satisfactory from a general public point of view for people to find out because they didn't read their business mail perfectly afterwards that they missed their one window and the door is irrevocably closed on their public input. That's not, I think, what the city's attempting to say, but you see we're lost in translation a little bit here. Like a reasonable person standard, I'm looking at the attorneys in the room, would want a little bit more opportunity than we I think, we're able to provide on this. So what the proposal is that city council would be an avenue for additional public input. How that functions is a question that needs more ripening or detail in a potential substitute version of this resolution. But beneath that is the concept I'm putting out there, that the standard, I think, it needs to be higher in general for communication, which is partly public input and it's partly public education, I think.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate it. Members of the public, please step forward, state your name and address for the record if you're comfortable.
Oh, hi, Amy Herberger, 1448 Bunce Road. Dear Mayor and members of City Council, I strongly urge you to support Resolution 2025-48, introduced by Councilmember Bullock, to ensure meaningful public input in infrastructure planning, especially regarding the Bunce Road multimodal project. The current process has ignored serious community concerns about safety, traffic flow, neighborhood character, and the quality of the data driving decisions. These issues have been pushed aside by arbitrary deadlines, broken communication channels, and a lack of transparency. Moving forward under these conditions risks public safety, erodes trust, exposes the city to liability, and wastes taxpayers' money. Let me be clear, that notification did not mention a 10-foot wide multimodal path on Bunce Road. More than 1,400 residents have formally objected to the current plan. That's not just resistance, it's a clear signal that this project, as proposed, does not reflect the values or needs of the people it affects most. It appears designed to serve a narrow agenda at the expense of those who live, work, and walk this corridor every day. Bunce Road is not just a traffic route, it's a living shared space used daily by families, school children, seniors, and pedestrians. Any plan that makes it less safe, less accessible, and less livable is unacceptable. And the environmental costs are going to be staggering. This project would remove mature trees, destroy essential green cover, and dismantle a functioning urban ecosystem. It will sharply increase noise pollution, affect schools, and it will affect schools and homes and worsen air quality due to higher vehicle emissions. These are not minor inconveniences. They are long-term harms with serious public health consequences. To move forward without fully addressing these impacts would not just be poor planning, it would be environmental negligence. If this plan is pushed through as is, future generations will remember this council for not improving mobility, but for sacrificing community health and environmental integrity to meet a deadline. Residents have offered thoughtful, viable alternatives. They deserve to be heard, not after decisions are made, but before. Support for this resolution is not about delay, it's about doing things right, with transparency, accountability, and respect for the people you serve. Please support this resolution as it's a matter of respecting the people. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please, Mayor.
Can we just have an opportunity perhaps to talk, since we have Engineer Papke here, a little bit about the environmentals and the process?
That's fine.
Sure. So with this being a federally funded project, it has to go through an environmental documentation. So all of our analysis and everything has to be submitted to ODOT for their review and approval, and an environmental, category exclusion is basically, generated before, for us to get final approval. So all these environmental, matters are looked at on a federal level, and they make sure that, you know, it meets the standards required by the federal government.
Thanks for that background, Mr. Papke. Turn it back over to public. Any other people who would like to comment?
Good evening, everybody. Shannon Mortland, 2125 Bunce. So none of us on Bunce have ever said that you guys aren't following your current processes. If you are, good. What we are saying is that those processes are flawed because Bunce people were not involved from the start. Only we know how we will be impacted because we live on our street. By the time you involved us, you had 2 plans to choose from. You misled and misrepresented the path as a bike lane. Fact, you invited us to comment, but chose one plan on June 6th, 3 days before the window of public comment closed, as mentioned tonight. We have spent the last year and a half sharing our research that the path is dangerous. It will ruin our property values. We've had 4 realtors from different companies tell us they're going down by at least 15%. And it's going to ruin our environment, despite whether the federal government says that these are within the parameters. And that's all because the city prefers pavement over safety and the environment. So I noticed something a few meetings ago that I'm shocked that I hadn't noticed before, but to my right, we have a tablecloth that says Lakewood City Council, your voice at City Hall. Well, so far, I have yet to see you guys walking the talk. So that's long overdue. I urge you to pass this resolution to improve your processes to involve those actually impacted from the start, not just a small special interest group who is not thinking about people of all ages and abilities. I urge you to pass this resolution and improve your processes to involve all of us actually impacted. Just because you only see a few of us from Bunce up here, meeting after meeting, make no mistake, there are still hundreds of people along Bunce who do not want this path and have completely lost faith in our city government. And to sit here and say that, well, this is the way we've always done it, I've always been taught that, in leadership circles, you should never say that because that's just giving up. There is always room for improvement. So even if you have to take time to flesh this out a bit and improve this resolution or however you do it, but you really need to improve your processes going forward because as it is right now, you've lost us, you're losing us. And that doesn't bode well for anyone. Thank you.
Good evening, Matt Herberger, 1448 Bunce Road. Just a couple of things. First of all, Mr. Bullock, thank you so much for this resolution. I think it's very thoughtful and very important resolution. I think what this process, this project on Bunce Road has pointed out, I think it's clear to everybody that the communication and the planning process is not adequate as is. It's not. No one, I would think, as a starting point, any project, I know I work in IT for a rather large corporation here in Northeast Ohio. We go to the stakeholders first when we're doing a project, and we get their information and their history of the process that we're trying to improve. That's the very first place we start. We have an exhaustive process. That's the equivalent of coming to the people on Bunce Road. And for many of us that have been there 20, 30, 40 years, there is clearly invaluable information that we have. Are you forced as a planning director or as an administration or as council to listen to that? You don't have to. But I would think everybody would be interested in those kind of ideas and opinions. These are hard-fought, long thought-out processes from the people that live there. If you're not getting that, we're already starting from the wrong starting point for a project. It's a complete wrong point. I want to address this issue that this project must go on. It can't be stopped. I'm not entirely certain that's true. I think quite frankly, there's legal avenues that we have as citizens that might stop this project. So I would think you should probably have alternative plans in mind. That should also be part of the planning process, I would think, is this may not come to fruition as we imagined it. We should have an alternate plan, perhaps 2 alternate plans, hot gold, silver, bronze. You don't know that when funding is tied to state and federal funds, you don't know for certain where that money will end up being. Even if it's in your own account right now, does not mean it cannot be brought back. So just the planning process itself should always have alternatives. To not have alternatives, real alternatives that can be implemented, you're leaving yourself open to even more issues. So, that's all I have to say. Again, Mr. Bullock, thank you for this resolution, and I urge all of you up there to please support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herberger. All right, so we've been communicating on the communication, so we can, I think, turn our attention to the actual resolution, 2025-48. I mean, I think in its current form, this is not something that's ready to be referred favorably back to all of council. I agree with there's a lot of points in this, and I think there's a lot we need to work out about, again, new processes that have just been installed. We haven't even scratched the surface on those yet, the Complete Streets and the Case Advisory Board. And do a lot of thoughtful work about how we can weave other community input into these projects. But as it stands, I would not be, I don't think it's ready to be referred favorably. So if there are no other, is there any other comments from the administration or my colleagues on council? The Councilwoman Hamilton-Steiner.
You can go first.
Thank you. I just wanted to, again, since we have Engineer Papke here, wondering if we could speak a little bit to the Bunce Road project itself and kind of where we're at and how catastrophic it would be, not only to this project, but any project moving forward in terms of our ability to run local public authority jobs. What that would mean if there was delays or changes. I think that's important to level set, just so everyone hears the same message.
Thank you. So with this type of project that we have multiple funding agreements, which all tie into deadlines. We have funding from NOACA, from ODOT, from Ohio Public Works Commission, from Ohio EPA, WSRLA, and the county. All those, agreements that we have, all tie into us meeting what's called the Ellis project deadlines that lock us in with ODOT on this project. So, we have deadlines that have to be met, and we miss those deadlines, there's, consequences, delayed funding or, our credibility to manage these jobs in the future, whether it's, other ODOT federally funded jobs or NOACA, we have to meet those deadlines. We have to show that, we have the ability to manage these projects and complete them on time. The other thing, with a project of this magnitude are just the multiple utilities that are involved in this project. We have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 utility companies that we're all coordinating with and trying to get everything together and, orchestrated so that, when one utility moves their utility, the next one's coming in. There's just, it's a lot of orchestrating and getting this together, all meeting these deadlines. It's, very, very critical that, we're able to manage this and complete this task on time. So where we're at, we're at the federal authorization stage to move this project forward is where we're at today.
Thank you, Mr. Papke.
And if I just can just speak a little bit more to the ability to secure all of these grants and loans for the project. First of all, kudos to our Public Works and Engineering team. About $12 million in outside funds were able to be secured for this project. And just to double down on, there are timelines, there are construction start dates, there are construction end dates, again, that we have to meet. If we don't meet those, we risk the funding, and we also risk future projects, as Engineer Papke said. When we're applying to these agencies, saying that we're going to be able to meet the deadlines and be able to execute this project timely, that's weighed in and when they're scoring a project for funding. So if we begin not to able to meet those deadlines, it begins to jeopardize future funding. And also, Engineer Papke, if I could ask you, because you gave me a great example when we were talking about the ability to run local public authority jobs, of what that kind of means in terms of a project.
Yeah, so, basically with us to be able to run these projects, I'm the LPA certified responsible in charge. There's one individual for each municipality that's able to do that. So I'm ultimately responsible to make sure that we complete these projects on time, that we have the funding secured and able to do what it is that we're proposing and say that we're going to do. I have to make sure we meet these commitments.
Mark, just to correct me if I'm wrong, but your example was, for instance, if we lose that local public authority ability, we may have a street where we want to do water and we want to do sewer and we want to pave it. Since we don't have that authority anymore, ODOT can come and say, well, we're okay with paving, but we're not going to allow you to do the water and sewer work. You'll have to come back, do that on another project another time, which in turn would be such a waste of taxpayer time, energy, and dollars.
Yeah, I mean, if we lose our authority to local, to do these LPA projects, local public authority, then it would just be ODOT let, and you're just basically at the mercy of whatever ODOT wants to do on those projects. And they don't get into IWIP, they don't get into water main replacement. They're doing basically the bare minimum. They're probably not going to be getting into anything that would be in our active transportation plan. So it's critical that, we maintain our ability to locally public authority these jobs, LPA, and be in control of these projects.
Thank you, Mr. Papke. I appreciate all the background the administration have given us, and the responsibility you're taking for taxpayer dollars and for process and ensuring that we can do more of these projects going forward, and making sure we're acting in good faith with our partners throughout the region. So I appreciate you speaking to all those points. But I do want to get back to Councilwoman Hamilton-Steiner.
Thank you, Chair Evans. Engineer Papke, would it be possible that we get a document that has all of the project timelines and deadlines, or if it's out there and I just have not seen it, I would appreciate that. And then you had said that you're at the federal authorization stage. What does that mean? Just so I'm understanding it correctly.
Yeah. So we submitted our final plans, specification, and estimate to ODOT, and they are going to be submitting that to Columbus to get our federal authorization to proceed with the project.
Got it. And have you received any word that there's a possibility of that not being approved, seeing that we do have a federal shutdown going on right now? There's really budgets not happening. There's a lot of chaos going on right now. So have you received any word that there's a possibility it's not going to be approved, or it wouldn't be approved for as much, or do you have any inkling of that?
No, I have not. I talked to the district LPA coordinator on Friday, and everything was still a go.
Okay, yeah, because I did have another question, if we actually had them, that was another question I had, which might have been more for Director Mahoney, is if we actually had the money and all of that, but it sounds like we are in the process of getting that money or getting it awarded.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, once we get our, federal authorization, it's, everything's go.
Okay. And then just the overall comment, I don't know, I know we're running up on time, but maybe something to think about for the next time we come together is really the process of the implementation of our plans and how does that go? Because I think that's really what the issue is. And I think Director Gordon, you had sort of started your conversation with that, is what are we trying to solve? And I think we're trying to solve is what is the public input process for these plans? And so we've got the active transportation plan, we've got the Madison Park master plan, we've got the climate action plan, we've got these plans, and a lot of residents are starting to know about these plans, they're reading up on them. I know there's chatter that's starting about the Madison Park master plan, people want to be involved in that. So I think this resolution could be a little bit bigger and not just thinking about Bunce focused. Obviously that this is turning out to be a learning curve for all of us in how do we improve what we're currently doing. And so I think that's something that I think we need to think about is what is that process of the implementation of these plans when we go to actually implement them. So the plan is approved, there's components of these plans we want to start acting on. What is that process? What does it look like? And how does the public get involved in that?
Thanks, Councilperson, and thanks for bringing this back around to, I think, the kind of the meat of the argument here is, which is how we can improve, public discourse about these projects. I appreciate that. I know Director Gordon had one final comment, and then we do need to move on to our next committee meeting. So, Director Gordon.
Sure, thank you, Chairman. I just want to make sure City Engineer Papke and I understand we are continuing to follow and implement the active transportation plan. If I understand everybody's feelings here today, because the shared use path was called out in the active transportation plan for Bunce Road. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we are continuing to follow the active transportation plan. Is that correct from this committee?
There's nothing that's been said today that
Okay.
that goes against that. No.
Great.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
If I may. So, yeah, I just wanted to, maybe this will close us out with this, is that, multiple things can be true at the same time. Like, we all acknowledged, I think, in our remarks that there's always room to try to communicate more. And in terms of being, the voice at City Hall, that's something Councilman Baker and I spent over a year working with the administration on Complete Streets and Case Advisory Board to try to build in process. As the active transportation plan is a big plan, and it's a change, and change can be hard, and change management's hard. And so trying to work on a process so that this type of conflict is hopefully doesn't happen again, or is we build in that that engagement sooner, and it's built in, and we have multiple avenues for that with Case. So we certainly worked on that, but it would take, even if council, even if we passed this resolution, it wouldn't undo the active transportation plan. We've already adopted the active transportation plan. We wouldn't undo Complete Streets. We've already adopted Complete Streets and Case Advisory Board. So it is confusing to me. And I think this is the question that I would encourage Councilmember Bullock, as you work on this, if you're going to continue to work on this, is what is the outcome if this resolution is passed? And if the intention is to repeal active transportation plan or Complete Streets or Case, then that's different legislation than this. So I think we need a little clarity on the legislation, and I'll just leave that there. But this body unanimously adopted active transportation plan and Complete Streets in Case. So that's what we're doing.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, President Keppel. Councilperson Bullock.
I've got a response to that, but also you asked a question before. So we could, on this resolution, we could do a couple things. One is we could refer it out and ask council to vote on the current draft. We could, we could also take the time to make a revision. I'd be happy to do that, but I'm only interested in doing that if I think my council colleagues would give it the time of day. So I'd like a little feedback on that. Or we could vote to table it right now. But let me answer, Councilwoman Keppel's question. So what this says, I think I answered it before in a response to Councilwoman Hamilton Steiner. The process could be that City Council has a separate, parallel, and partly overlapping, but partly distinct public input process to catch anything that isn't covered by the other process, because the other process by Planning Commission, by case, is narrower and more specific. It's not big picture, and it doesn't engage with public communication either. So what I'm talking about here is a mix of public input and public communication. Because, for example, we've been saying, hey, in effect, I mean, I've heard from people in this room that multi-use paths work out just fine, and there are examples that we can look to where we can see that that's worked out just fine. That's important information that has not been communicated to the public. I hope that there's value to that, sharing that, but that hasn't been a part of our current process, meaning the city's process. So there are things there, the sphere of communication, public input is larger than what we have, and I admire the work that we all did. And by the way, I worked hard with Councilman Baker on his early drafts of the active transportation plan and gave him a bunch of feedback. I know you worked hard. So that's all 7 of us worked hard on that plan. And I think it's a good plan, and we're about to put some good thought into the applicants. They're going to do important work, and that also is at piece, not the whole. We're the whole, okay? And if members of the public find that their voice is an orphan, it appropriately belongs with City Council or the mayor's office or both. That's essentially what this is saying. As I open in the remarks, in some ways, all I'm proposing is to use the powers that we already have. So in some ways, we don't even need this resolution. We could just do it. However, because of the newness of this topic and the high, kind of tension in the room about, is it a good idea, is it not, did we follow a good process, did we not, I thought it was a good idea to at least pose the question. There's also one more question, which is, who decides? We passed the active transportation plan as a whole. We passed the active streets, the complete streets as a whole. Right now, it's the administration that decides. Okay? So if City Council has a view that it wants to express, right now, we don't get ourselves directly involved. And so a section in here would reserve the right for City Council to be involved. I think probably the process that should be followed is that we respect what Public Works has laid out. We just start this a lot earlier, before all this paperwork and money goes irrevocably to the state and we would incur harm, is that we get more consensus earlier. I'm trying to use respectful language, not make anybody right or anybody wrong. City Council's got a lot of initiative that we could take too, so I'm not trying to make administration responsible for stuff. This is my self-reflection. So this is an attempt to answer my colleague's question, say, this is muddled, what do we mean? That's what I mean. I think it's worth spending more time on. What about you guys?
Thanks, Councilman Bullock. I appreciate it. I agree. We're not working at cross purposes here, I think, is the main goal.
Okay.
We all work together on complete streets. It's super important. We all worked on the case advisory report. Those are going to work together. Is there room for more improvement? I think that's something we should talk about. I don't think we have that in front of us today. I am more than willing to defer.
Chair Evans, can I just chime in real quick?
As long as it's quick.
Yep, no, it's going to be quick. So Councilman Bullock, I see your vision. I don't think we're there yet, and I think it needs some more work. So, and I'm willing to keep working. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we should table it. I don't think it's ready to pass, but I'm more than willing to defer and keep the conversation going. So I will make a motion to defer.
I second that.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Meeting of the Public Works Sustainable Committee is adjourned. Thanks for everybody for being here.